Alright, welcome back to another chess video here. We're going to be playing another rapid game. So let's get it started here. Alright, and we're waiting for a game. I think this time we're rated about 1700, so we'll be looking for something in that rating range. And we're up against a 1630 about as white. So we're playing the black pieces here. We'll go with a Sicilian defense here. E4, C5, starting off the game here. And again, the normal second developing move that we see a lot of times in the Sicilian defense is knight F3, and to which I respond D6. D6 second move is basically inviting the game to turn into a Najdorf setup. And you see the pawn on D6, and the purpose of that pawn is if E5 is pushed, it takes a sting out of E5 because you can just take with the pawn. So we have H3, kind of a waiting move here. So we'll play knight F6, developing more towards the center here. And we have a closed Sicilian type setup with D3, E4. D3 is kind of the move signaling a closed Sicilian type setup because his bishop, one thing, the center is not opened with D4, and his bishop is not developed to the outside of this chain. So in closed Sicilian type setups, I like to go for G6 and bishop G7, fianchettoing the bishop here. And the reason behind that is to develop like a nice setup here to protect the king, and also to put long-term pressure on the white queen side here, which will be vulnerable from attack. Our game plan will be to push like b5, b4, and weaken this diagonal here, this dark diagonal pointing towards the queen side here. But let's go bishop G7, and we might expect queen D2, trying to play for bishop to H6 here. And a way that I've seen to stop this plan is to play H5 actually in this position, because that adds a defender temporarily to the square. So I think that is kind of an interesting way we can defend against bishop H6, because I want this bishop on the diagonal. Also, we could just castle, and after bishop H6 takes, and his queen will be there. We can kind of use a goofy placement of his queen, maybe, to accelerate our development. However, I don't like the prospect of him, after getting his knight down there, and pressuring us further on the king side. So I think castling into this, it might be good, but I see some problems with it doing that immediately. So I'll play H5 here, which a little bit weakens the G5 square, but there are things we can do about that, because I really don't want to give up this H6 square for now. And now we might not even want to castle kingside anymore, depending on how our opponent plays here. But we'll go with this plan for now. And now our priorities will be developing this knight probably first, and then this queenside bishop here, our light squared bishop. So he plays knight C3. I don't think we're really scared of any knight jumps yet. So we can go ahead with our plan and develop the knight to C6 here. And then looking at where we could develop this bishop, we have a couple squares here. And it might not even be bad to put the bishop on e6 in a position like this. But we'll see. We'll continue playing here, see what our opponent's plan is. And he plays g3. I'm not sure what exactly is the purpose of this move. Because if he wanted to push g4, he could have just done that right off the bat. Oh, I think he wants to fianchetto his bishop. So, let's see what our plans. I'm arguing whether I should develop my bishop. In my mind, I'm arguing whether I should develop my bishop to d7 or to e6 here. And the drawbacks I see of bishop e6 is that his bishop will be along this diagonal and kind of less. Yeah, I see some drawbacks to e6. I mean, the point of e6 would be after, let's say, he castles, we can go queen to d7 and set up a battery immediately. But also the drawback of e6 is that we can't ever push the e pawn, and we can't this bishop couldn't ever return to this diagonal. Pretty much it would be blocked from ever going to. So I think bishop d7 is kind of a more flexible move for now, and it still leaves our queen with the typical Sicilian developing squares of like b6 and a5 here. So I think in that regard, it's good. We could even like go queen c8 to like force this diagonal, but typically in like a Sicilian setup, that is where you want a rook, because you're anticipating like this diagonal being opened maybe. The drawback of queen b6 in this position, developing our queen, is that after queen b6 we can't ever go with our plan of pushing this pawn here, or we would have to move our queen out of the way first. Queen a5 looks like a good developing square. It gets our queen out of the way and prepares for this push here. And it could also prepare for, let's say, queenside castling if we wanted to go for that. Let's see. And we could even play e6 and look for like a d5 push here. I'm going to calculate the move e6. Let's see. I mean, queen b6, he has to probably spend a tempo. No, he doesn't, because he has this. I think e6 is probably pretty good here. And maybe a6, b5. e6 is not really recommended when you have all these dark squares weakened around your king. But in this position, I think I'm going to play. I think maybe a6 was also a good move here. Yeah, because, yeah, now we have problems here. And it makes it hard to defend this pawn here. Because we cannot just let's see what we have. We cannot defend this way, we can defend this way. Let's see, let's go queen b8. Defending the pawn, and we'll kick the knight probably if we're given time. Yeah, I think e6 was probably a mistake. a6 probably would have been a better move there to play instead of e6. All right, so I think that's a very good move here. Actually, it might be a miscalculation because after taking with a knight here, we should notice that this knight is hanging. So after, let's say, takes, this knight is still weak here, and he's, let's see. Yeah, this knight is still weak. I think this may just be a slight blunder here. Takes, and takes. And then I don't see a spot for this knight to, I mean, it has to retreat, but I don't see a spot where it can further really attack. And then we can maybe get our bishop back along this diagonal and neutralize the long-term threats he has here. Or we could play something like a knight to d5, threatening to take the bishop, blunting that diagonal. Depends where this knight retreats to. He has these options that I see. If it goes there, castling would probably run into bishop h6. So that's why I've delayed castling for this many moves, I should say. I should mention that. All right, so we have queen a5 from the white pieces. So I think the issue here is if we take and take, takes is with check here, and that's not very good. Could play a6 defending this bishop. also retreat the bishop to like here, but after I don't like the long-term pressure on this diagonal here. But anyways, he could also push c4, I mean, if he's really looking to get this bishop here. So takes, check. And then this pawn looks like it's falling. So I think something like this, a6. And this knight is still hanging. Still hanging. Maybe even, no, because then he just takes, but now b6 is probably a threat because let's say his knight, yeah, let's say he attacks the bishop. Now I think b6, he doesn't quite trap the queen, he gets to go back, but now, let's see, b6, queen goes there. This rook is hanging. We have takes, 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 takes. We can't. Wait. b6, queen d2. b6, queen. We have, let's see, b6, queen d2. Takes, 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 takes. But then this rook is hanging along with that. So I think, how about takes and then takes. Yeah, that might be a problem. Takes, because he doesn't have to take that. He could take the bishop here, and then our rook is still hanging. Yeah, I think that's probably the stronger move. So I mean, we could go, we can't really take, because after takes then we're probably losing another pawn. Well, let's see. Takes, takes. I'm going to take this knight here. And we cannot recapture here is an issue. So if he captures, we can capture with a rook. So I think a good move to play at this point would be to castle, and if bishop takes, attacking our rook, we can play rook to c8, which attacks this pawn at the end of the sequence. And then we'll also look to play knight d5. And now we can take this pawn now that we've castled, because now this has two defenders, the rook. And we're up, I guess, a pawn here temporarily. The advantage that white has, though, is white has a bishop pair, which is going to exert, I guess, pressure on our queen side here that we will have to neutralize somehow. My plan to neutralize that if this goes long term, is to go knight d5 first of all, blunting this bishop, I guess. And then we're going to start our own pressure here if we can, maybe even after some sort of sacrifice here. Opening up this diagonal that we can attack here. So this is a threat now, and I don't think he can really, I mean, he can push his pawn, so we can't take and open up. All right. So castling is probably a good move. I like to move knight d5 here, probably, because let's say takes, he can just take, and then we're basically, I think this queen is kind of in a little bit goofy of a position here, and we kind of want to keep it in a goofy position, if that makes sense. So knight d5 invites this bishop to take, whereupon we can activate our own rook in the long term here. So I like knight d5, inviting the bishop to take this pawn here. Whereupon we can play rook c8, and then rook takes on c2. And if bishop takes, I mean, its continuation is pretty similar. Bishop takes, he definitely, I don't think he wants to give up this light squared bishop. I mean, that's what is exerting the pressure on our queen side here, and that's the point of why I play knight d5, is to help neutralize that pressure. And I'm threatening to take here and just play like, so we can play on equal terms. I'm also threatening to push b6 now and close down this queen side for good, maybe. Yeah, but I think this pawn is somewhat poisoned. I don't think he wants to take this, because it's not exactly free even. There's no way he can really defend this pawn on c2 unless he plays like c3 or something. c3, I don't think. I mean, we just take his bishop. So now b6 is kind of a positional threat. Adding a defender and attacking the queen. He can't take, of course. And then after the queen drops, we can push, like, let's say a5, just closing down the queen side there. And then after that, we can centralize our queen. I think is not a terrible plan. All right. So I think now his plan is to take, and after we recapture with our rook, he'll go here. And after like rook c8, I don't see where he's... Okay, I want to take. I think I want to play rook c8 here and go for this pawn, because I still don't think there's a way for him to defend it. And if he takes with his rook here, we recapture, and we're, I mean, exerting pressure here. Yeah, I don't see... Did we trap his... No. Wait, did we actually trap his queen? I didn't even notice that, but wait. Guarded, no, not guarded. So I guess he can go here. But it's like nearly trapped because all of these squares, of course, are guarded. I didn't even notice that. But he's like nearly trapped. And if we can maybe like attack this square with something, like rook, no, because then his bishop will be guarding. But if we can attack this square, yeah, I don't think we can quite trap his queen. However, if his queen goes here, I think we have to exchange because that sets up the threat of taking the rook on a6, and then I can't recapture because I'm pinned. If my rook was to take on c2, is what I'm seeing here. So I think he's pretty much forced to play queen b5. I don't know what he's thinking about here, unless there's some move I'm not seeing, because all of the other squares the queen can retreat to are guarded. Yeah, he has to play queen b5. And then I think this continuation is pretty much forced. Take, but if I take on c2, he has takes. Then we have take. So maybe here, takes. And if takes. Yeah. I think it's decently balanced here. Because here we're facing a problem with what? Here. Yeah, I think I want this bishop. He's forced, and then takes. And if queen takes, we take here. And I think I want to play here. And now bishop takes sets up a threat of rook pinning my queen, so I will have to play something like queen to c7, so whereupon we can whereupon the rook reaches, we can retreat. And then I think I want to sacrifice this pawn here in order to open up the bishop and the queen's diagonal. So yeah, I think this is pretty much like forced, almost pre-moved. Something stupid there. Probably it's not the best move to play rook check. And now material is even. And this really even wouldn't be a sacrifice because we could just swoop in with checkmate here. So I think this is a strong contender for a move. I think he probably should want to block it. Would be his priority to basically seal my bishop behind this pawn at least, but then we could move the bishop to a more useful diagonal. So it's not like we're trapped out of it. It's not like we have a permanently bad bishop here. There's stuff we can do. We can infiltrate with our queen is a plan here. Rook A check, we just moved to h7. And then we have to be wary of defending this pawn here. But if his rook leaves the first rank here, then we have ways of chasing his king out to the middle of the board and probably giving him some sort of checkmate there. So he has to be careful if he's not leaving anything to defend his king. I don't think I have many weaknesses here. I think everything is pretty solidly defended, and he has this isolated pawn. I mean, he has advanced. He has double pawns in the third rank, so yeah, rook A check. This is pretty much forced. King h7. And then I think he has to play some sort of forcing moves here, unless he wants to fall apart. So, yeah, this. Okay, let's see. I don't know if this actually wins my queen or what. Does this win my queen is a good question. Because we might have to play for some sort of draw here if he's actually going to win my queen. I can play rook here. After takes. Counterattack. Oh, yeah, I missed. I blundered. I think he can just take the rook. I mean, I could at least take the bishop, but then he'll be winning for sure. Yeah, it's just a blunder. But now he has to actually convert it somehow. So I guess we're going to look for tactics here to try to save the game. Let's see. Let's go for some sort of try to go for some sort of draw, maybe. Maybe a queen. fork with the bishop. This also defends our weak pawn here. He's very close to like losing now if he plays like a bad continuation to this. He's very close to actually. I think he fumbled a little bit because this pawn is defended. If this, there's this, and I think he's getting just mated. And if this, there's this. Yeah, I think there's just like his queen is kicked somewhere, and then afterwards there's just mate here. So now we have a desperado sacrifice. And yeah, he's getting desperate. But all my pawns are defended here. My bishop is still, we're still threatening to play checkmate. So, I mean, if you're gonna clown on somebody here, you gotta actually be able to like follow it up. And let's see, he might be able to, but we'll see. Yeah, let's play like here. If you're gonna clown on somebody, gotta make sure you're absolutely winning first, and I don't think he really was. We're threatening to just play mate. He basically just has to take, and then yeah, I mean, I think he's just given up here. I think there's nothing he can do. And tactics are definitely what saved us at the end there. He just got sloppy when he thought he was winning. And it cost him the game in short. So, yeah, rook b5, I think it was definitely a blunder. But let's see. Had some good tactics there at the end, saving the game. All right. Yeah, 79.3 accuracy, so not too great on my part. I think it started, our mistake started with e6. So, yeah. Just let's go through the game first. e4, c5, Sicilian defense, and then knight f3, d6. h3 is kind of a waiting move, so we follow kind of the normal developing plan with knight f6. And then, because I saw it was like a closed Sicilian here, I chose to play for the fianchetto here, which is what I like to do in a lot of closed Sicilian positions. So, queen d2, why is that a mistake? He wants to go, the computer wants to go for like a Maroczy bind type structure, but why did I miss? Wow, okay, yeah, I missed just the tactic of knight takes e4, and then we're winning this rook in the corner here. So if I had seen that, that would have made the game way easier. So h5 is a way of defending, I guess, the h6 square if they're threatening to play like bishop h6 and then exchange off for your fianchettoed bishop. So knight c6, not bad. Bishop d7, an inaccuracy. Why doesn't it show the engine moves? Yeah, bishop d7 is an accuracy. d5 is best. Interesting. But anyways, bishop g2, e6 is okay, I guess. Knight b5 is excellent, and we had to play queen b8 in that position. And yeah, I had the feeling that this was a blunder. It's blundering a pawn after knight takes, and then you take that knight over here because this knight is hanging. And queen a5, I don't know if I responded exactly accurate, but a6 it says is not bad. It's just slight inaccuracy because it allows white to keep attacking the bishop. And then taking the knight, I guess I miscalculated. I guess better would have been immediately blunting this diagonal here. And then, yeah, castling is good. Knight d5. And yeah, queen takes c5 was a mistake because of rook c8. And then we had to exchange the rooks there because he was threatening to x-ray if I took on c2 first. So knight takes e3. I wanted that bishop off the board. And then, yeah, bishop h6 probably was the most accurate. That's what Stockfish says. Targeting this pawn before we even took on c2. But I couldn't resist really taking on c2. And then queen c7 was a miss. I guess I had to play king h7 first because of this idea. King h7. Yeah, and what if they play rook a8? Queen d6. Then I can just move my queen to a different square. Interesting. So yeah, I think it probably was even about even after. Yeah, I totally missed that he could reverse pin, I guess, our queen to our knight. Rook c1 check, king g2, rook c2 check, king f3, rook takes b2. So something like this. Would have been saving the game, but yeah, rook c5 definitely was a blunder because queen can just take, and then I can just, but I still got something out of it. I mean, he still wasn't defending the bishop, so I took the bishop, and we're at +1 for white. So he thought he was just totally winning after this, but the fact is that like he still has a lot of weaknesses and kind of a open king. And if he allows my queen to infiltrate, if he doesn't play some like defensive moves first, he's going to have serious problems with actually preventing like a checkmate there. So he like kind of laughed. He thought, oh, like let's save this pawn. The real like danger was you should be focusing on like not getting checkmated first. And queen c2 would have been a way to do that while also defending the pawn. So queen f3, it's a lesson of like you're cutting off the king. He can only move to h2. And then my idea is, you know, I'm defending this pawn. I'm also starting to put pressure on this just in general, this diagonal towards the king once I get my bishop to h6. And so now he probably realized like, oh shoot, like I have to play like I don't know what the idea of that move was. Just a horrible blunder, because after bishop to h6, now I'm threatening both the skewer of his king and queen, but also just to force his king into the corner and mate him. After, like, let's say his queen were to move, we just check here, check here, check, and he's mated. So yeah, bishop h6, king h2, and then once the bishop arrived there, he realized, oh shoot, I'm like gonna get mated. So he kind of made the unnecessary rook sacrifice here. Taking this pawn doesn't really do anything. Like, if he wanted to try to defend, I mean, there's no way basically at this point, but he could have just moved his queen to the second rank in the first place without sacrificing his rook. But now after, like, bishop f2, it just says play h4, but bishop f2, and basically the queen has to take, or else he's going to get mated here. In order for it not to be a mate in 2, the queen has to take here, pretty much. And now we just win the game here. So that was a Sicilian defense. So let's go, I guess, into an opening analysis here of the closed Sicilian. So we'll pull it up, the game, in another tab here, analysis tab. So e4, c5, d6, h3, knight f6, and then d3 is like the move that signals the closed Sicilian for the most part. And basically that is white saying, I don't want to open up the center and get all tactical. I want to play this like positionally. I want to play this long term, like put maybe fianchetto. But h3 is kind of goofy if you want to fianchetto this bishop, I think. That's just my opinion. Because you would want to play g3, right, instead, and then get your bishop to g2 so it doesn't take an extra move to activate that. And then bishop e3, queen d2 is a good way to try to neutralize this fianchetto bishop that black will most likely put here. And then knight c3 is the development usually you see there. So what I find that works best, and what a lot of books will say, is that fianchettoing this bishop here and playing kind of like a dragon type structure against the closed Sicilian is a good way to try to get counterplay as black here. And yeah, after queen d2, that's amazing that there's already tactics on the board that could be happening. So knight takes e4, you just trap this rook in the corner, and he's already down material and has to play the game, the rest of the game, down in exchange here, pretty much, if we'd found that. So h5, yeah, knight c3, and then we finish development. I think better than e6 here, definitely. I think what would have been a6 for a human. I don't know. Stockfish says e6 was better. What does it like best? Bishop g2, that's what he played. Then queen c8, like forcing this battery. Yeah, I didn't really like queen c8 because you're developing your queen to a square that's still on the back rank, basically meaning your rooks will not be connected. But of course the computer will always know best in the long run, so I guess long run, there is some merit to this diagonal here, most likely because he pushed h3. That's what makes it good to put the queen there and put long-term pressure, because then it severely discourages him from castling, because if he castles, that takes away the rook from that square defending h3, and we take with both pieces there. But rook b8 also kind of like a waiting move. Knight h7 is interesting, I guess. Maybe it wants like an f5 push. I think that's like goofy. But castling, probably also a good option. The thing that annoyed me about castling was that now white can execute this plan, which I thought was a little bit bothersome. But all right, that is it basically for the Close Sicilian game. I hope you enjoyed that video.